The GL10 has been regarded as a market leader since it debuted in 2016 to a lot of fanfare, with the whole GL series winning a major industry award and the first acoustic piano to do that in decades. But it's now been a full 7 years since, and several other models from Chinese rivals have come to market. Yamaha also continues to produce its GB1K, and of course, there's the used market. So the question becomes, if you are a homeowner and you're looking for a piano that plays as good as it looks, is the GL10 still a first choice option? I've come up with 6 reasons that still stand as much in 2023 as they did back in 2016 when we first introduced this piano on the channel. For one, they continue to include the Millennium 3 action on this instrument. For piano newcomers, the action generally refers to the entire mechanical assembly that includes the keys you press, the hammers that strike the strings, the dampers that silence it, and everything in between. It's one of the most labor-intensive elements of piano building, and the impact the actions have on the playing experience is enormous. It's as foundational as how a race car's steering and suspension system affects the quality of the driving experience. Besides still hearing the occasional competitor go into a whole scare tactic about synthetic parts, the vast majority of the piano world recognizes the Millennium 3 action as one of the finest out there, irrespective of price point. Accordingly, Kawai uses the Millennium 3 in every grand piano they make, including their much lauded Shigeru Kawai line. Getting this kind of tech on their entry point is a huge bonus. And honestly, no other piano in this price range even comes close to this action experience. Point number 2, this has an honest-to-goodness solid spruce soundboard, which is tapered and aged. In this category, I would say you've got somewhere around a 50-50 chance of getting solid spruce of any description, but a tapered and aged one is considerably more rare. Now, the top tier Pearl River and High Loon built pianos like the Emerson stuff or the Kaiserberg lines, those are being equipped with soundboards of this caliber from what I understand, but the pricing is above what you're paying for a GL10. So why is tapering and aging so important to a soundboard? Well, both processes have the effect of increasing resonance. One, by reducing the moisture in the wood so that there is less water to absorb the energy, and 2, by thinning it out as it gets closer to the edges to increase the surface area that keeps resonating after the initial strike. On smaller pianos like this, I find those processes have an even greater disproportionate effect on the tone than on a larger instrument. Additionally, by aging it, you also increase its structural stability during seasonal humidity and temperature changes, leading to better tuning stability and overall longevity for the soundboard. And just for the record, Kawai uses Sitka Alaskan spruce for all of its soundboards. Point number 3, thickened integrated stretcher bars. A stretcher bar connects the two sides of the rim together with a precision piece of rim material, essentially creating a whole loop around the piano. This is going to increase cabinet resonance, but it also increases structural rigidity and connection with the Pinblock. Point number 4, this has double felted hammers for added expressive range. Like solid spruce, this double felting is less uncommon than it used to be in this category, but it's still a fantastic feature, which gives the instrument added tonal range and reduced distortion when you're playing in your higher volume ranges. Point number 5, this has an 11-ply multi-grip pin block for added tuning stability. And here's a point that's important to note. The shorter a piano's strings, the less it takes to put it out of tune. As a result, most entry-level baby grand pianos notoriously have poorer tuning stability than their larger cousins. On the GL10, to combat this, Kawai uses that 11-ply multi-grip pin block to make both the tuning an enjoyable process for the tuners, but it really helps to lock in the tunings for months on end. And finally, point number 6, this instrument has a full Sostenuto. While I personally don't make use of the Sostenuto pedal very often, as watchers of the channel will know, there's a decent body of classical and modern piano works that recommend it. And many baby grands skip this feature, including Yamaha's GB1K. So there are my 6 points about this instrument that individually range from somewhat unique to rare, but in combination, I would say still makes the GL10 the most technically advanced home use baby grand piano on the market today. Now, Let's give it a play and listen to what we're getting in 2023 on the GL10. I have several immediate reactions to playing the GL10. For one, the color and transparency in the top half of the piano is truly remarkable for something in this price range. It's very common to get a nice clean tone from some of the better instruments, but clean and transparent are two very different things. Clean simply means that it's absent of any weird warbles or false beating or kind of errant frequencies coming off some of the duplexing front or rear. So clean just basically means it's a stable sound. You hear it at the beginning and it essentially remains fairly static throughout its whole sustain. But transparency and color kind of refer to a broader spectrum of upper partials that are happening when you're playing the piano. And it creates this kind of sense of air and space and openness in the sound. The other thing in the top half that's really quite evident is just how clear the top octave is, because that's also something that's really not to be taken for granted in this price category. There's a nice consistency of tonal character even once you get up into the very top reaches, which is somewhat unusual, as I say. Throughout this entire range, the sustain is also something that needs to be remarked on, and this, I believe, is a direct result of the decision to taper the soundboard, used and aged in a really good cut of spruce. If you look at the grain count on this instrument, it's incredibly high. And so you've got a dense, dry soundboard that's been nicely shaped and really going to carry that energy for quite a while. One thing I notice on instruments that are more in kind of the entry level in this area is if you play a chord kind of at a medium volume, and it's a chord that stretches off quite a range, however you voice it at the beginning, meaning which notes do you emphasize a little bit more, which ones do you hold back, that tends to change over time as you're listening to the sustain, because the different strings don't have, there's slight inconsistencies in the strings and the area of the soundboard that's sort of absorbing more energy than not, but the voicing here stays really consistent. Now when we get into the bottom third, if there's an Achilles heel to this instrument, it is the bottom third of this piano. Now part of that is characteristic of just the size generally. It's really, really hard to have a 5-foot piano with this nice, big, warm, full bass. But I will say that there are other pianos in this size range that have produced a fatter, warmer bass than what you get on the GL10. The GL10 it's a clear bass. And so I think there's been sort of a conscious sacrifice of some warmth and some horsepower down there in favor of keeping more consistent tonal character throughout the entire piano. If this piano is in a room that's not enormous, and it's not exposed to like a ton of reflective surfaces, I've heard this bass sound and feel very, very balanced. If you're into a bigger space though, something that's going to be 15 by 15 or 20 by 20 or bigger than that, higher ceilings, lots of glass around it, that's when you may want to be looking at a larger instrument generally, regardless of brand. But as I said, if this is in a smaller space, 10 by 10, 10 by 15, and it's a bit of a tighter environment around the piano, you can get a little more connected to those bass frequencies, and it does come off as very balanced. So now the action is another huge element of the playing experience here, and this is using the Millennium 3 as we already mentioned at the beginning of the video, and that's the same action that you're going to find on much larger pianos. Even though the key stick in this piano is going to be slightly shorter than what you get on say a 6-foot or a 7-foot, there's still quite a bit of heft that you experience playing this instrument. It's not a super light piano. If you're somebody who's used to playing on a 5.5 to 6-foot piano, this is going to feel super comfortable because that's about what it's weighted for. It's right in and around that 5.5, 6-foot piano in terms of how it feels. If I was blindfolded, that's what I would say I would have been playing. So for people who are using this as a practice instrument to be playing on slightly larger pianos, that's perfect. People who are downsizing to a smaller piano, that's also perfect. If this is going to be your first baby grand piano, then there's going to be a transition period, probably of somewhere in between, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks, where your fingers are going to be getting used to a bit more resistance and a bit more inertia than you would be used to either on an upright piano or on a digital. Some people would argue, well, you're going to find that with any grand piano. I'm not sure that's the case. I play a lot of grand pianos where the factory setting on an instrument like this is intentionally ultra light because they know that the crowd that's going to be playing on those pianos don't really have a lot of experience. So depends on what philosophy you adhere to. I think with Kawai, they've always gone for an action which is going to deliver maximum expressive range, and that expressive range comes from the right resistance, the right key lengths, and an instrument that can respond to it. And that's exactly what you're getting here. Very fast repetition speed and consistent repetition speed and unbelievable levels of control in your pianissimo and triple pianissimo ranges. So that's pretty well the best description I can give of the playing experience on a GL10. This enormous dynamic palette and a tremendous amount of transparency and clarity and sustain in the top, half, top 2/3 of the instrument, and depending on the space you're in, a nicely balanced bass that matches the character of the rest of the instrument. You've got an action which has the weight necessary to really train your fingers for a larger piano if you wind up doing that, but it's not so heavy that if that's not part of your musical experience, that you're not going to enjoy playing this just for the sake of playing it on its own. To wrap things up here, if you're a parent or an adult hobbyist player and you're thinking about a baby grand and you're thinking this would be a perfect accent for your home, or maybe just the right amount of excitement or encouragement to keep your son or daughter on the path to piano, then I think the GL10 in 2023 is a must consider. Not only has it proven itself in the field to be a really low maintenance instrument generally, but the gift that the Millennium 3 Action gives should not be misunderstood or overlooked. This piano is going to feel perfect the day you get it, and there's a good chance it will still feel that way 5 years in without a single adjustment having been made. That's remarkable even in, say, a $100,000 piano. It just does not happen with baby grands in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Stu Harrison. If you found this useful, helpful, or entertaining, please consider subscribing because we'd love to have you part of our community. Leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.